Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the player ratings. Chelsea 2, Everton 2 at Stamford Bridge last night. A fantastic point for Everton, a fantastic point for Sean Dyche's side. A wonderful, wonderful first goal for the club for Ellis Sims. And overall, just a good evening, wasn't it? A really, really good evening for Everton. Obviously, the results didn't particularly go our way during the day, so it was imperative really that Everton went to Stamford Bridge and got a result, and that was never going to be easy. We haven't got the best record at Stamford Bridge, that's to be said. That being said, we've got quite a decent record against Chelsea in recent years, but we haven't got the best record at Stamford Bridge. And you know, you add that to the fact that we went behind twice in the game, that it was a very difficult game of football. It really just shows the resilience, the tactical ability of the manager, and ultimately the belief and the confidence that these players have in the manager's, plan and system to pick themselves up and drag themselves on when going behind on a couple of occasions. So this is the play ratings. We have just done the instant match reaction. If you haven't checked that out, please do so after this one. But this is the show where we're going to give every player a rating from 1 to 10, 1 being absolutely horrendous and 10 being Ellis Sims. And yeah, we're going to go through each individual player and have a little bit of a talk about their performance individually. Let's get straight into it then. Jordan Pickford. I'm going to give Jordan 7. I think he was okay. I don't think he had an awful lot to do. Granted, Chelsea had, the majority of the possession and certainly were in charge of the game for the majority of it. But, I don't think there was much that came Jordan's way. The first goal, I don't think he can do much about, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I think it's a good finish by João Felix. He does well to find the space. He does well to sort of find the time to get the shot away. Could have been defended a little bit better for me from Everton's defence. I think, when you allow a player of that quality, that time and space in the box, he's going to get a shot away. Jordan was completely blindsided by it, so he couldn't have done anything about it. So you can't blame Jordan for that. And then the penalty, of course, was absolutely nothing to do with Jordan Pickford whatsoever. It was a defensive mistake. It was a mistake by James Tarkowski and Ben Godfrey, and then of course Jordan attempted to save it but couldn't, but that doesn't fall on him. Distribution I thought was okay. The little saves he needed to make I thought were okay as well. Didn't have any real issue, no real problem. So yeah, he's getting a 7 out of 10. Ben Godfrey at left back. I'm going to give Ben a 5.5. I do think he's at fault for the penalty. Now, okay, James Tarkowski, I think, is the actual, the player that makes the challenge, that ultimately makes the referee's decision. But it was, it was a mistake for me from Ben Godfrey to get himself in that position, get himself tangled up in that position, and ultimately allow, I can't remember who it was, with it Kai Havertz, I can't remember who it was, ultimately allow the Chelsea forward to get in that position and spin him, and then of course forcing James Tarkowski to come over and try and intercept it. Other than that, I thought he was okay. A little bit exposed at times down that left-hand side. Naturally, because obviously he's not naturally a left back. There was a moment in the first half where he just completely sort of left his man and wandered into that centre half position, and I think it was Enzo Fernandez. He left Enzo Fernandez on the edge of the box, and he ended up getting a shot off, and okay, it was blocked and nothing come of it, but it could have been a much different situation because Ben Godfrey had left his man completely on his own to sort of wander into that centre back position. But again, not an awful performance by any sense of the imagination, but just not as good as we expect. Into the centre half then, James Tarkowski. I'm going to give him a 6.5. Look, obviously he is at fault for the penalty. There's absolutely no doubting that. There's absolutely no, there's no questioning that whatsoever. He is at fault for the penalty. Ultimately, the reality of the situation is that he probably has to come over and try and make that challenge, because obviously Chelsea have then got an opportunity at goal. It's still a mistake. It's still an individual mistake. He knows he's made it as soon as he puts the tackle in. It's these types of mistakes that have cost us points over the course of the last few months. And listen, we could sit here and say that mistake cost us a win in the game, but there's an argument to be had that if we don't concede the second goal, do we push to go and get an equaliser or to go and get a second ourselves? I don't know, but the reality is it was an individual mistake that once again has cost us points, and we've had those conversations far too many times in recent weeks. So yeah, I expect a little bit better by Tarky, but obviously, it's a mistake that we just have to get over and move on from. Michael Keane next. I'm going to give Michael Keane a 7. I thought Michael Keane done okay. Thought generally done okay. Could he have done a little bit better for João Felix's goal? Maybe could have been a little bit more aware. Maybe could have been a little bit more I don't know, maybe switched on to the danger and switched on to the player in the box, potentially. But generally, I thought he had a good game. I thought he was solid. Thought he defended well. Thought he battled well. Thought he put himself about well. I thought he was quite aggressive. He was quite assertive. He was quite sort of strong in his challenge, in his headers, in all of it. I thought he had a decent game. Michael Keane, I thought he had a decent game. Seamus Coleman, going to give Seamus a 7 as well. Thought he had a decent game again. Exposed a little bit down that right hand side at times. A couple of moments where he was left for pace, or he was left for dead a little bit. But again, that's what you expect when you've got a player who is absolutely playing out of his skin, but unfortunately just isn't at that peak of his career anymore. But it wasn't particularly an awful performance. He didn't particularly do anything wrong. There wasn't many individual mistakes. You weren't sitting there sort of scratching your head going, oh my God, Seamus Coleman's having a woeful game here. He battled, he put himself about, he worked hard, and yeah, I thought he was okay. Into the midfield then, Dwight McNeil. I'm going to give Dwight McNeil a 6.5. I don't think he was as involved as what he has been recently. I still think he battled. I still think he worked hard. I still think he put himself about. I still think he put in a good shift, a good performance. Was it as good as it could have been? Maybe not. He wasn't as forward thinking. He wasn't as assertive. He wasn't as positive as maybe he was against Brentford. But maybe that's because we were away from home. We were playing against Chelsea. It was a very different sort of different circumstances to that game last week against Brentford. But generally, I thought he was all right. I don't think many people would have had many complaints with Dwight McNeil, because he worked hard, he put himself about, and although his final product wasn't great, he's been very, very, very good recently. So I think he can be allowed, a bit of a sort of stalemate game, if you like, because I don't think he was bad. I just think he was there. I just think he was average yesterday. But again, as I said, he worked hard, he put himself about, he still battled, and he ultimately deserves credit for that. Into the 3 in midfield then, Abdoulaye Doucouré. I'm going to give Abdoulaye Doucouré a 9. Thought he was really, really good yesterday. Put himself about, battled, got another goal and an assist, and listen, the goal is obviously a flick on header, which is great, because it shows he's in the right place at the right time. He shows he's where he needed to be at that time. But I think the assist is slightly more impressive for me. The little chest on, just to put Ellis Sims into that swing, into that that direction and that momentum that he was then able to run with the ball with. I think all comes from that knock-on from Abdoulaye Doucouré, and I think it's a really, really, really impressive knock-on. It's a really, really impressive bit of play, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. And yeah, as I said, a goal and an assist and a game of football where he was everywhere. He was picking the free man up all the time. He was moving the ball around. He was defending well when he needed to. He was getting forward when he needed to. I think it was a fairly faultless performance by Abdoulaye Doucouré. A really, really solid game. Onana next to him, not so much. I'm going to give him a 7. I thought he was on and off. I thought there were times when he looked really positive. There was times when he was working hard. There was times when he was moving the ball. There was times when he was, he was winning the ball back and throwing the tackles in, and he looked, really assertive. And then there was other times when he just completely went missing, and you didn't see him for 5-10 minutes. A very hot and cold sort of performance by Amadou. Of which we have seen this season. We've seen very good performances from him. We've seen poor performances from him. And then we've seen performances like this from him, which have just been a little bit sort of everywhere up in the air. Again, I don't think it's anything too serious. I just think he maybe wasn't as on it as we would have liked him to have been yesterday. Same with Garner, really. I'm going to give Garner a 6.5. I thought he was a bit less involved. Obviously, he come off for Ellis Sims as well with, 20 minutes to go or whatever it was. I just thought he was a little bit less assertive. Listen, it was always going to be a difficult game for the midfield yesterday because Chelsea were always going to have all of the ball. Chelsea were always going to have all of the possession. They were always going to be the team attacking. They were always going to be the team getting forward. So it was always going to be massively difficult for Everton's defenders. For Everton's midfielders to try and get a foothold in the game. But I just thought Garner was a little bit not involved yesterday, should we say, and hopefully that isn't the case against Tottenham in a couple of weeks. Iwobi, listen, I'm going to give Iwobi a 3. I thought he was really, really poor. I don't think it's cause to sit here and scream or shout at him or have a massive go at him. I just think he was really, really poor. I just don't think he was involved at all. I think his passing was poor. I think there was a moment in the opening, 4 or 5 minutes, where the ball fell to him and he had a lot of time in his hands. He could have took it down, he could have held it up, he could have passed it, and he just lumped it in the air. And from that moment, you sort of thought, yeah, his head's not really in this. He seemed nervous, he seemed agitated. He just didn't really seem on it yesterday. And look, he grew into the game. Granted, there was a couple of moments where he done well with the ball at his feet and he moved it well and he got himself out of some sticky situations. So I don't think he was absolutely atrocious. I just don't think he had a very, very good game yesterday. And then Demarai Gray, I'm going to give Demarai a 5. Similarly, I don't think he was particularly good yesterday. Again, difficult because of the situation, because we, of course, were playing Chelsea away from home. I think there were a lot of times when Demarai Gray found himself, in the wide areas on the wing, and then you're sort of looking at the box and thinking, well, who's in the box to get on the end of it, because you're the fella that should be in the box. Does he work as a striker? Not particularly for me. Probably works better than any of the other options, maybe barring Ellis Sims, who might get a go in the team now, but I still don't think he particularly works as a striker because he naturally finds himself moving over to those wide areas, and then there's a massive gap in the middle of the box. So yeah, I don't think Demarai was great. Don't get me wrong, he worked hard, he put himself about, he battled. I've got no real complaints about him, but I just don't think his performance was great. Onto the bench then, Mykolenko. He can get a 6.5. Had his part to play in the goal, pre-assist, if you want to call it that. But yeah, come on, showed it up, defended well. Didn't have a massive task to do. He was caught a couple of times in that last 5 minutes when Chelsea had 14 corners and none of them were actually corners, but the referee was dying to give them, the win. He was caught a couple of times there, but generally, again, no real complaints about Vitaly Mykolenko. And then the only other substitution Sean Dyche made, Ellis Sims, 10. Because why not? It's the player ratings. It's one game. He was brought on with a task, with an objective. Go on, get us something out of this game. And he did. We've just spoke about him for 10 minutes in the instant match reaction. The goal isn't a tap-in. The goal isn't it bobbles to him in the 6-yard box and it's fell to him luckily, and he's making, he's taking advantage of a goalkeeper mistake or a defensive mistake. The goal was a really, really, really impressive poacher's striker's instinct finish, and he deserves all the credit in the world for that. So Ellis is getting a 10. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. If you have enjoyed them, please do leave a like. We'll be back on Monday with the game review, so don't forget to look out for that one. If you haven't checked out the instant match reaction, please do so. Big thanks to everybody for watching live. If you're watching the YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below. Massive thank you all for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you later.